Hello and welcoming you all back to Pavithra.C.R YouTube channel. This is Pavitra working as Assistant Professor at Department of Business Administration PG at Dr. SNS College of Arts and Science. Today in this video we are looking on to a video lecture series on creativity and decision making. In prior videos we were looking on to the introduction of creativity, what is creative decision making process, why a creative decision making process is important to a business, and we were also looking on to various stages of creativity and creativity in different fields. Today in this video we will be looking on to creativity in different different types of creativity. So moving on to the video, first and foremost, creativity is actually, as we discussed priorly, it is a tendency to generate new ideas and conceptual practices and alternatives for a problem statement that arises in a business, rather than sticking on to old and conceptual ideas. Creating something new out of the existing problem statement is called as a creative process and creative practices. Now coming on to the types of creativity. So creativity is actually of four types. One is deliberate and emotional, spontaneous and cognitive, spontaneous and emotional. So this type of creativity is explained in this picture. So it is stated as deliberate cognitive. So deliberate cognitive is something brainstorming ourselves and bringing out a more experimental one or experimental practice is called as a deliberate cognitive process. So coming on to a deliberate cognitive process, an example for a deliberate cognitive process would be Thomas Alva Edison's invention. So the invention that he bought in is something out of the experiment and brainstorming session that he bought in. So bringing on a light. So priorly it was not found out. So he brought into something innovative idea. He brought in a creative practice. So these kind of creative ideas that is came out of a brainstorming and an experimental process is called as a deliberate cognitive type of a creativity. Secondly, deliberate emotional is something an unexpected moment or a creativity that is arised based on or from an unexpected event is called as a deliberate and emotional one. So in some cases it would be a lucky factors. In some cases it would be based on the situations or based on an emotional factor something would have been arised. So that is called as a deliberate and emotional type of a creativity. Thirdly, spontaneous and cognitive type of creativity is something, a creative process that is generated immediately out of a thing that happens. The best example for spontaneous and cognitive would be Newton's third law, where he found out the law of gravity from an apple, from a falling of an apple. So this is a creativity from a spontaneous event. So this kind of creativity is called as a spontaneous and cognitive. Fourthly, spontaneous and emotional. It is something an art or creativity that arises with an emotion. So this would an example for spontaneous and emotional type of creativity would be the creativity that is brought in by an artist, musicians, dancers. Those are the spontaneous and emotional type of a creativity. So, detailedly discussing about deliberative and cognitive type of creativity, it comes from a hard work in a particular area, whereas we discussed priorly, Thomas Alva Edison's invention on electric light and bulb is a best example for a deliberate and cognitive type of a creativity, where his work involved doing experiments repeatedly, making tweaks as he did until something finally worked. So this kind of a process is called as a deliberate and cognitive type of an creativity. So moving on to deliberate and emotional type of a creativity comes from sitting quietly and relaxing ourselves and brainstorming ourselves to get an emotional idea. To get an idea is called as an deliberate and emotional type of creativity. These types of creativity is like uh, an emotional movement that seems to pull a solution out of the air. But most these kind of creativity that comes under an emotional factors are deliberate and emotional types of a creativity. Whereas spontaneous and cognitive type of creativity that arises immediately after a situation or immediately after situation arises. As we discussed Newton's third law on gravity, which has been found out from the falling of an apple. Immediately with the falling of an apple, an idea sparkled in the mind of Newton. So this kind of an creativity is called as a spontaneous and cognitive type of a creativity. Next, moving finally coming on to spontaneous and next, finally, coming on to a spontaneous and cognitive type of creativity, uh, spontaneous and emotional type of a creativity where it is something arised from a immediate emotional practices and spontaneously. For example, musicians, dancers, painters. So these kind of people bringing out their creativity comes under spontaneous and emotional type of a creativity. So that's it about this video. In the next videos, we will be further looking on to a more interesting topics on creativity and decision making. Stay tuned to Pavithra.C.R YouTube channel to know more details about creative managerial process and managerial practice and more interesting topics on management. Thank you.